Within every woman, there is a wild and natural creature, a powerful force filled with good instincts, passionate creativity, and ageless knowing. She uses fairy tales, folklore to explore what she calls the wild woman archetype. So the whole book is around this archetype, about this wild woman archetype. So the book I'm going to be speaking about is Women Who Run with the Wolves. I love this book. Any woman that hasn't read it, I really recommend you guys go and get this book. You know, when you think about wolves, you think about, oh God, they're fierce and they're instinctual and they're loyal and all of that. And as you know, as women, I really work with my wild side all the time. You know, as an artist, I have a lot of self-expression. It comes to me quite easily, but I felt like over the last almost a year, I'm feeling very restless. So when we think about the book, it's like, you know how so many times we have these books in our lives that are just sitting on the shelf for years, you know, and they're just sitting there. It's almost like they're waiting for you to be ready for them. Have you ever experienced that? Yeah, it happens all the time, right? It's like, you know, it's the time has to be right. And I felt that's what happened when I went back and reread this book last week, is that the timing was right. I read it when I was feeling both deeply creative. I've been very fortunate in this time of the year, but I'm just expressing myself through my art. So I'm an artist also, you know, so I've been feeling very deeply creative in this time, but I'm also feeling very strangely disconnected. You know, it's like something's been missing, you know, and God's listening to her voice has changed everything for me this week. So the book is written by Clarissa Pinkola Estés. So she's a psychoanalyst, a poet, and an author. And she uses Jungian psychology and storytelling very beautifully in this book. And she's someone who's actually so she was born to Mexican parents and and they had Spanish and Native American lineage, but then she was adopted by Hungarian immigrants. So she's got so much of a cultural mix in her personality, and she brings it out beautifully in language. So she talks about cantadora, and she considers herself a cantadora, and a cantadora is basically someone who is a keeper of stories. Like, I love that word. And her work, particularly this particular book, uses a lot of myth. She uses fairy tales, folklore to explore what she calls the wild woman archetype. So the whole book is around this archetype, about this wild woman archetype. And so it's come to me at a time when on the outside I was doing everything right. I was showing up, I was working hard, I was ticking all the right boxes, but like I had this restlessness, right? And the beginning of the book starts with wildlife and the wild woman are both an endangered species. Clarissa Estés writes, within every woman, there is a wild and natural creature, a powerful force filled with good instincts, passionate creativity, and ageless knowing. These words, when I read them, they landed so deeply for me. Like, I had to just close the book and just sit with these words, you know, because of course they were so profound. And it reminded me that beneath all the roles, especially as women that we play, there is a wild woman who knows, who creates, who intuits, and who belongs to no one but herself. The book is actually it's not a very simple read. Because it is, and I was actually thinking, you know, I don't even know it's a good idea to pick up a non-fiction book when it comes to sharing as a speaker, because it's very easy for people to relate to stories. You know, if you're sharing a story, you get immediate buy-in. It's easy to listen to a story. As humans, by design, we love stories, right? So to pick a non-fiction, I knew was going to be tricky, but it had to be this book. This book is like sitting by the fire, listening to an old storyteller, a cantadora, one who reaches into your soul and tells you the truth, the one that you've been waiting for and the one that you've been afraid to listen to. Every chapter is a story. So every chapter in the book, it has an old myth, like an old folklore story. And they're beautiful characters. There's the wolf woman, the handless maiden, the little matchless girl, Baba Yaga, my favorite. She's like the old hag in the book, and the skeletal woman. Each story carries a potent message. These stories remind us that ancient wisdom still holds the key to healing and spiritual wisdom even in today. So even though the stories are centuries old, but they're so relevant, to us as women today. One of the stories that really spoke to me was Laloba, the wolf woman. She roams the desert collecting bones of wolves and all dead animals, anything that is going extinct. And then she collects all of these bones and she places them before a fire, and then she starts to sing. The song is not an ordinary song. Her raw, soulful voice rings out and the bones begin to remember. So the bones all tie together, the flesh starts to return, the breath stirs, and the wolf rises. Alive, strong, and free. This image never leaves me. Like Laloba, even every time I think of the book, the most visual character for me is Laloba. She is the wolf woman, and maybe it's because it's the first story in the book. But can you picture it? Like like a woman, like a wild woman collecting all of these bones before the fire and dancing, and it comes to life, and it's this beautiful wolf that runs into the midnight sky. Like it's such a visual thing for me. So it reminds me that our art, our stories, our silence is how we sing life back into the bones of what we've lost. In some way, we're singing over our own bones, bringing them home. Another story is, of course, I'm wearing red today, I just felt it was appropriate, is The Red Shoes. I love this story. So The Red Shoes is a haunting tale of a poor motherless girl who sews together. So she's a poor woman and she's got this poor little girl and she has these scraps of cloth. And she sews all of these scraps of cloth and they're all in the color red. And she makes these beautiful red shoes. The shoes are, of course, not perfect, but they're alive with her spirit and creativity. She then gets adopted by an old woman who, out of compassion, buys her a pair of shiny, store-bought red shoes. At first, they seem magical, and when the child gets swept into an uncontrollable dance, so she begins to dance in them, but then the dance becomes very rabid. Like it's almost like the dance has taken over her, and it drains her of all life and joy. This story spoke to me because I realized that, this is a part of my practice, my art practice. I feel that I've not been looking at, I've just not been wanting to look at it too much, is because even though initially, and I can become like this, when I'm painting a painting, I can get very into the whole, into the whole piece and the color and the texture and all of that can be very intoxicating. But sometimes it can also take away. It can also take away from what I really want to do. And I realized that how sacred that wildness is, that wild, feral woman who must be protected. It's almost like a warning for me, of not losing I'm almost done, my handmade shoes and to work for something. But so anyway, so I'm going to wrap up here, but I had another piece I wanted to share. It's not a story, but I feel, as women, it's important for me to share this today, is about how and this is not a story, it's just something that she talks about, how the unmothered mother. And I felt, I don't know, I found this very, very primal. It touched me on a very primal level because I think a lot of us, our mothers could have been unmothered mothers. They themselves might not have been, they might not have got the nurturing that they wanted, which is why they were not available to us. So I feel a lot of us are out there just trying to mother ourselves. And it's a task. It's a task for us to do. Even though you have a mother, she might have been dealing with other stuff and then we're mothering with what we've got. So just deep compassion for all of us as a woman. And I wanted to read the last 2 lines, and I'm just going to do it, Shivani, because it's too beautiful. The favorite quote by Estés is, "The doors to the world of the wild self are few but precious. If you have a deep scar, that's a door. If you have an old, old story, that's a door. If you love the sky and the water so much you can almost not bear it, that is a door." And that is what this book did for me. Thank you so much. May you all find the wild woman within you. Thank you.